right? So stay tuned for that. So back in 2004, 2005, I was kind of just trying to figure out, as someone who grew up in hip hop, how could I contribute back to that culture which I grew up in? So when I looked around, there was a lot of things already going on for other elements of hip hop. There was events for rappers, there's events for break dancers, if you're a writer, if you're a poet, spoken word, whatever you do, there was sort of an event that catered to that, except for producers. There was just nothing in Toronto at the time, or very limited resources for that, I would say. So that's kind of what Battle of the Beatmakers sprung out of, is just filling a void, filling a gap. There was nothing for producers. We said, all right, let's put this event together. We didn't know what was gonna happen. We didn't know what the result was gonna be. We did our first battle in the suburbs, so it wasn't even in Toronto. It was like an hour and a half outside of Toronto. So to expect people to come from the city and to travel all the ways out there was not really something we thought would happen, but we actually did it. So we did it the first battle, and to my surprise, the line outside was basically wrapped around the building of all the people interested. So that was kind of the first idea, like, okay, this is actually something that people want, people need, people are interested in. So that's how the first one went down. We had a full house. That was Boy Wonder's first show. Came out just him and his uncle. At that point in time, everybody came out with their crew. So you're talking dudes coming with like their whole block with them. 20 dudes coming with them. He just comes with his uncle. And he's from the suburbs, which was an anomaly at the time, because if you came from Toronto in particular, you had to come from a hood of some sort. Nobody was respecting nobody from the suburbs. So this little 16 or 17-year-old kid from the suburbs with his dad or his uncle comes and actually just killed everybody. There was something about, he just had a certain air that I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but it was almost like he just knew something that everyone else didn't know, because what you have is the young kids at that, and this is 2005, but you have the young generation and you have the old generation, and they like kind of different sounds. So the younger generation, if you played a certain beat, you get a reaction from the younger crowd. You played a certain beat, you got a reaction from the older crowd. But when he played, he got it was just anonymous. Everybody just felt it, and you could feel it, like the energy in the crowd was like, wow. Because there was a lot of guys like, oh, that's that young kid shit. But when they heard him, it was like, okay, they couldn't deny it. It just resonated with everybody in the room. And I don't even think he knew that. He had no idea what he was capable of. He just, because I don't think he really rated himself, because he was just a kid with Fruity Loops. These are guys with MPCs, Triton keyboards. They had all, SP12, they had all that. And they know all the lingo, all the language. He didn't know any of that. All he knew was Fruity Loops. So even in a conversation among producers, he looked like the the oddball in the group. But as I said, he just had an air, and I would attribute some of that air to the fact that, he's from Jamaica. So if anybody is familiar with Jamaican culture, you know that heavy bass is a part of that sound, reggae. So I think that plays a part of his sound, and it filtered out to today. A lot of Drake stuff has that reggae influence to it. So I think that was a part of it, because he has the bass and stuff like that. But other than that, it's just, he's a boy wonder. You know what I mean? So that was his first battle. We did the next battle 2 months after that, because there was such a demand for the next one. So all right, we did another one 2 months after that. And that's the one I believe T-Minus first entered in. He lost the first battle he'd been in, but he came back the third battle and won. Boy Wonder was also in the second one, he won that. So when I say win, there was categories back then. It wasn't one winner like there is today. When we started off, there was 3 categories: party category, smooth category, and the grimy category. Party category if you're into making club music. Smooth if you were into more like a tribe. I don't know if you guys all know Tribe Called Quest. All right. Okay. Some of that kind of mellow, J Dilla kind of sound. And then grimy was like your Wu-Tang, Mobb Deep, hardcore, boom bap kind of thing. So it was always 3 categories in the early days. His thing was party, and then he eventually got into the grimy thing. So he started off as like the party guy, party beats, and then eventually transitioned over. T-Minus was always on the smooth, and he's kind of never strayed from that to this day. He's still kind of on that, that's his lane. So that's kind of how he started. So that was the second one. A couple months later, we did the third one in August. So we just went back to back. March, May, August, 3 battles back to back. And we took a year break. Came back in March 2006. Boy Wonder started to be hot in the street at this point in time. Like pretty much he's a household name pretty much in the city. Everybody kind of knows of Boy Wonder. But again, at this point, this is just a Toronto thing. We're not even considering that someone from outside of Toronto was going to come here, much less the US, much less Europe or any of that. This is just a Toronto thing, 2005, 2006. 2006, he makes a song called Do What You Do. I never heard the voice before. I was kind of impressed with the song. I never heard the voice. I know pretty much every rapper in Toronto's voice. This voice I never heard before. So I said, yo, Wonder, can you get that artist, whoever it is, to come and perform at the show? And long story short, that rapper happened to be Drake. So that was a song they did in 2006 called Do What You Do, which you can still actually find on YouTube. But that was Drake's first performance as a rapper at our March 2006 show. Again, I didn't know who he was. I just handed him the mic. Like, I didn't have an introduction for him because I had no idea who he was. I didn't actually know that he was on Degrassi at the time because there's two different generations of Degrassi, an earlier generation and then the newer generation. So I had no idea he was on Degrassi. I found out about that after the fact. So I just basically handed him the mic. Hey, do what you're gonna do. So he rapped, spit a freestyle, did a verse. He actually had Pusha T on the verse, which was interesting now. Because now when you look at the history of him and Pusha T going to beef, it's like, bro, this is who put you on. We wouldn't have accepted Drake had he not had that Pusha T cosign. You know, because that to us was like crazy. Like Pusha T, like acknowledging a Toronto rapper, that was crazy in that time period. So you can't just the hand that fed you, you know? Without that cosign, we probably wouldn't have accepted him. But because he had that Clips cosign at the time, that was a big deal for us. So that's 2006, and then they just kept collaborating after that, on and on and on. OVO wasn't formed at the point. It was kind of, they had I can't remember the exact name, but there was a crew that they had, but it wasn't OVO just yet. Around that period is when 40 first met Drake, Boy Wonder first met Drake, so around 2006 is when the seeds of all of that started to form. T-Minus, he came on the mix a little bit later, but he was already in that circle, because T-Minus and Boy Wonder actually were a group together at one point called Straight Grammy. So they actually rap, produce, just like a collective of artists. So that's 2006, 2007 we brought it back, 2008 we did it again. So at this point we're doing it annually, but again it's 3 categories up until 2008. So again, party beat category, smooth category, Grammy beat category. In 2007 was the first time we made it to 32. So, well, I should say, sorry, it's the first time we had one winner. It's always been categories, but it was the first time we just had one winner, 2007, 2008. We took a break 2009, didn't do any battles, then we came back and brought it back in 2010, and that's when everything changed, 2010. So 2010, because we started off with venues that were like 300-400 people, we doubled that up to Opera House, which is like 800-900 people, and that's where we've been ever since 2010. And that was the first time producers from outside of Toronto started to come to town. So our first international producer was a female from Amsterdam by the name of Nina. She flew all the way from Amsterdam and killed 31 other dudes, which was like unheard of. And that was kind of like the first, I would say, you know, planting the seed. Not only could a female win, but someone outside of Toronto could win, and the fact that people even outside of Toronto would come to Toronto to participate in something like this, you know? So, and from there it just started to grow. And one of the things, once Boy Wonder became bigger, once Drake became bigger, T-Minus, people always research things like everybody does nowadays. You hear a name, you research it. So they researched it, they trace it back, and they find out about Battle of the Beatmakers somehow. And that's kind of how the name kind of just started to spread over the time. And then before you know it, there's producers from all over different countries coming here and checking it out. So Nina won 2010. Next year, a guy named Mr. Magic won 2011. He was actually the guy that beat Boy Wonder in the early days. Boy Wonder taught him to produce, from the rumors say. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but he ended up beating him in 2011. He actually winning in 2011, and then 2012, Wonder Girl emerged. And that was a whole other phenomenon on its own, with its own story. 2013, we didn't do a battle, and then from 2014 on, we've just been going year after year, knocking them out, and it's just been growing and growing and growing to what you have it now. So that's kind of a short synopsis of Battle of the Beatmakers. The conference came in also in 2010. It was very small. We actually did it in a bar right next to the Opera House. It was a little bar, like maybe 50 seats. And Boy Wonder just did a breakdown on like Over and Forever, just a little deconstruction back then on how he made some of his earlier hits. And over the years, we just kind of grew. You know, we had different speakers, the Ninth Wonders, Just Blazes, Static Selectors, who else? A few other people. But that's kind of how the conference grew. So just giving you a little breakdown on what you're attending this weekend is all about, how it started and what it came from and where it's at